I've been a wildlife photographer for years. A few years ago, when I was 34, I decided to go out into a dense national forest for the weekend. I loved being in the wilderness. Nothing felt better than the silence and the fresh air. But this trip, it was different. I still think about it. I set up my camp under a tall pine tree. It was quiet. I could only hear the rustle of the leaves. I pulled out my camera, eager to capture the tranquility. That night, I crawled into my tent. I listened to the forest sounds. Around midnight, I heard something. It felt strange. Distant voices, I wasn't sure. It sounded like gruff laughter coming from deeper within the trees. I felt a chill. I thought about calling out, but I kept quiet, thinking it was just hikers. The next day, I hiked a nearby trail, hoping to get lost in the beauty of the forest. I loved snapping photos of birds and deer. As I walked, I noticed some unmarked paths off to the side. Curiosity pulled me closer. I took one path, wondering where it led. The trees grew thick, and the underbrush tangled around my legs. I walked deeper until I stumbled into a clearing. The ground was littered with overturned rocks. The air felt heavy. I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. I got scared and quickly turned to go back. On my way out, I noticed a set of large footprints in the soft dirt. They were massive, way bigger than any bear. I knelt down to take a picture. While I focused, a strange scent filled the air. It was musky, almost sweet. It made my stomach turn. I felt cold for some reason, even though it was a warm day. I rushed back to my camp, feeling like I should just leave. That night I tried to sleep. The sounds returned. Those voices were back, closer now. I heard the laughter muffled through my tent walls. They sounded right outside. Fear shot through me. What were they doing? Were they trying to lure me out? I thought about the footprints. I felt very alone. In a burst of courage, I unzipped the tent flap slightly. I looked out into the darkness. I couldn't see anything, but then I heard it again, a low, chilling laugh. I froze. I wanted to yell out, but I couldn't move. Suddenly I saw a shadow shift at the edge of my sight. My heart raced faster. Before I could react, the laughter turned into a low growl. I turned around quickly, and everything went quiet. I didn't understand what was happening. The forest felt alive in a scary way. I could still hear those voices. I felt like I was being hunted. Then I heard a whisper, soft but clear. "Why are you here?" I can't explain what happened next. I just knew I wasn't alone anymore. I stumbled backward, my heart thumping in my chest. The voice felt like it came from everywhere and nowhere at once. I pressed my back against the cold canvas of the tent, hoping to disappear. Panic swirled inside me like a storm. Should I call out? Should I run? But then, silence fell again. It wasn't just quiet. It was an oppressive stillness. No chirping crickets, no rustling leaves, nothing. It felt wrong. My breath quickened, and I could see my pulse throbbing in my fingertips. I couldn't stay in the tent, not knowing what was out there. With a shaky hand, I grabbed my flashlight and slowly unzipped the flap. Cautiously, I peeked outside. The moon cast an eerie glow over the clearing, and shadows danced as branches swayed overhead. I scanned the area, but nothing seemed out of place. I felt foolish for being so scared. Maybe it was just my imagination. But as I took a step out, the world felt heavier. I noticed a yellowish light flickering in the distance. It wasn't far, maybe just 100 yards away. The light wobbled, like it wasn't steady. My curiosity pulled me toward it. What was it? My instinct screamed to turn back, but the need to know, to see, overtook me. I crept toward the light, trying to stay quiet. As I moved, the laughter returned, echoing through the trees. But it felt different now, more menacing. I could hear voices, distinct yet muffled, as if they were speaking in a language I didn't understand. It sent chills down my spine. Finally, I reached the edge of the clearing where the light flickered. I crouched down behind a large bush. It felt like I was in a spy movie, hiding from whoever was out there. Then I saw them. A group of figures stood around a small fire, their backs to me. They wore dark clothing, and their laughter echoed through the trees. I couldn't see their faces clearly. All I could make out were long, thin silhouettes that moved in an unsettling rhythm. What were they doing? Why were they here? My heart sank as the laughter grew louder, and one of the figures turned slightly. I caught a glimpse of something, not a face, but something twisted and wrong. It sent a jolt of fear through me. Suddenly, one of them pointed in my direction. "Look!" he shouted. My body froze, and I sank lower behind the bush. I held my breath, praying they couldn't see me. The others turned toward my hiding spot, and whispers began. They were alert now. I could hear a few words. A name, my name. "He's the photographer." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. How did they know that? What did they want with me? The question hung heavy like a fog. Then everything changed. The air suddenly turned cold, and the laughter stopped. The figures turned again, and for a moment I thought I saw something else behind them. A larger shadow, looming just outside the glow of the fire. It wasn't human. I needed to get out. With a surge of adrenaline, I crept backward, never taking my eyes off that figure. Just as I turned to run, a loud snap pierced the silence, the sound of a branch breaking underfoot. "They're coming." I bolted, heart racing, scrambling back toward my tent. I didn't look back. I had to get away. I ran, feet pounding against the forest floor. Branches scraped my arms, but I didn't care. My only focus was reaching the safety of my tent. I could almost hear their footsteps behind me, but when I stole a glance over my shoulder, nothing was there. Just trees, their shadows stretching like dark fingers in the moonlight. I reached the tent and dove inside, pulling the zipper closed as quietly as I could. It felt like a flimsy barrier against whatever was lurking outside. My breath came in heavy gulps, and I fumbled for my flashlight, hands shaking so hard I nearly dropped it. I switched it on, the beam cutting through the darkness like a sword. Wrapped in the inadequate comfort of my tent, I listened intently. The stillness outside felt different now. Instead of eerie silence, I could hear whispers, low and indistinct. But there. I pressed my ear to the fabric, desperate to pick up any words that might explain what was happening. The voices grew louder, a cacophony of murmurs blending into an unsettling harmony. Then, a few phrases broke through. The night, the path, and he sees. What did they mean? Who were these people? I felt as if they were toying with me, using my fear as a game. I needed answers, but I also needed to be smart. The last thing I wanted was to confront them again. I took a moment to collect myself, to be rational. They didn't seem to be right on top of me yet. Maybe I had escaped, maybe they were just laughing at their own little secret. But the creeping dread clawed at my thoughts. If they knew my name, they had been watching me long before tonight. Against my better judgment, I slowly unzipped the tent. I peered out into the darkness, flashlight at the ready. The clearing was empty, but the yellowish light was still flickering farther away, pulsing like a heartbeat. I steeled myself. I had to know. Was I losing my mind, or was something truly unnatural happening here? I stepped out, keeping low, and headed toward the light again, this time moving cautiously. Every rustle made me tense. I had to figure out who they were and what they wanted. As I approached the edge of the light, I noticed something new. Larger shapes moved on the periphery, hiding within the trees. They blended into the shadows but felt alive. There was something watching me, and it wasn't those figures by the fire. My heart raced harder than before. I took another step, my instincts screaming at me to turn back, but curiosity pulled me in. I needed to understand this madness. I needed to find a way to fight back if I had to. Then, just as I made up my mind to approach, A low growl resonated from the trees. The sound chilled me to the bone. I wasn't alone. That's when I saw it. Two glowing eyes fixated on me, hungry and predatory. The eyes didn't blink. I froze, the flashlight beam trembling in my hand. The growl echoed again, deeper and more menacing, vibrating through the air and sending shockwaves of terror down my spine. I had nowhere to run. My tent felt miles away. The creature stepped into the flicker of the firelight. It was massive, built like a wolf, but with exaggerated features that seemed wrong, almost human. Its fur shimmered unevenly, like shadows twisting in the dark, and jagged teeth glistened under the moon's pale glow. It felt as if it was testing my resolve, gauging how much fear it could draw from me. I wanted to scream, but I couldn't. Every muscle in my body refused to obey. All I could do was stand there, paralyzed, while the creature's gaze locked onto mine. My heart pumped furiously, drowning out the whispers that had crawled up to my ears. I tried to remember the stories I'd heard around the campfire, tales of the things that haunted the woods. Had this been one of them? Just then, flashes of movement flickered in my peripheral vision. The smaller figures, the ones by the fire, were now looming closer. They started to chant, their voices winding around me like a thick fog. The path. He sees. Their words intertwined with the growling creature, creating a soundscape that threatened to unravel my sanity. Suddenly, one of the figures broke free from the group, veering toward me. I braced myself, ready to defend against whatever monstrosity was about to attack. But as it stepped into the light, I saw it was a woman, hollow cheeks and wild hair. Her eyes were wide with desperation. "Run!" she shouted, her voice fraying at the edges. "He's coming for you!" That single command snapped me out of my paralysis. I turned on my heel and bolted. The shadows seemed to swallow me whole as I dashed back into the trees, branches clawing at my arms. I didn't look back. I couldn't. The growl morphed into a snarl, and I sprinted faster, propelled by pure instinct. The forest turned into a maze as I raced through it. Each stride felt heavy as dread nipped at my heels. I could hear the pounding of paws behind me, closing in. My flashlight flickered, then dimmed. Panic clawed at my insides. Just as I felt my chest tightening with ice-cold fear, I stumbled into a clearing. In the center was a broken-down cabin, its structure leaning slightly to one side. It looked abandoned, but at that moment it felt like my only chance to escape. I dashed inside and slammed the door. The wooden creaks echoed like a shout in the stillness. I sank against it, heart hammering as I tried to catch my breath. I squinted into the darkness, searching for a corner to hide. My fingers brushed something cold and metallic. A small trap-door lay at my feet. I hesitated, fear swirling in my gut. Outside, I could hear the growls growing louder, accompanied by the frantic chanting of the figures. They knew I was here. Then a chilling thought gripped me. Whatever was in the woods wanted something from me. That was clear. But what? Before I could answer my own question, the front door burst open, splintering wood and sending shards flying through the room. The creature entered, silhouetted against the light behind it. I could hardly breathe as it loomed closer. Fear surged in my veins. I had to decide, stay and face it, or dive into whatever lay beneath that trapdoor. I made a split-second decision. I dropped to my knees and yanked the trapdoor open. The darkness beneath it was abyssal, but I couldn't afford to think about what waited down there. I heard the creature's growling morphing into a low rumble, vibrating through the floorboards. It was at the door, and I had only moments to act. I scrambled down the ladder, the wood scraping against my palms as I descended into the pitch-black space. I pulled the door shut above me, sealing off the terrifying sound of claws scraping against the cabin. The air was damp below, and I felt around for something to hold on to. My heart raced as I tried to find a light switch, but there was nothing. In the total darkness, I listened. Just silence pressed down on me, heavy and suffocating. It was a disorienting feeling. I felt like I was part of the dark. Then I heard it, a faint sound of breathing. It was raspy, like the wind through dead leaves, and it sent an icy rivulet coursing down my spine. I wasn't alone. "Who's there?" I croaked, my voice trembling in the stillness. No one responded, but the breathing continued, slow and deliberate. A part of me wanted to bolt back up the ladder, but I steeled myself. I couldn't let fear lead me back into the jaws of that creature. Whatever was down here, I needed to face it. Cautiously, I reached forward and felt something cold and hard. It was a metal chair, rusted and old. I pulled it closer and sat down, trying to calm my racing heart. I strained my ears, tuning in to the eerie sounds around me. I thought about the woman's warning. What had she known? What was coming for me? The breathing grew louder. Whoever or whatever was down here knew I was right there. I forced myself to breathe steadily, not wanting to give away my fear, but just as I thought I might try for the ladder, I heard it. A soft shuffle followed by a scraping sound. It was moving, and suddenly I felt trapped. The dimness shifted slightly as a shape flickered before me. I gasped, but quickly stopped myself from making noise. It was just a shadow, but the outline felt familiar. That's when I saw it. A figure crouched in the corner, its features obscured in shadows, but it looked human. "Please don't scream," the voice whispered, low and fearful. I blinked hard, adjusting to the dark. "They're listening." "Who are you?" I whispered back, urgency cracking my voice. The figure shifted and edged closer. "I'm not here to hurt you. I tried to warn you," they said, "but there's no time now. He knows you're here." Before I could react, the trapdoor creaked above us, and I heard the unmistakable snarl of the creature. My heart raced with a mix of confusion and dread. The darkened room was now filled with tension, and I knew I had to make my next move carefully. As the figure inched toward me, I realized they weren't alone. Behind them the shadows shifted, and more figures emerged, their eyes glinting in the dimness. The implications set my mind racing. They had known I would try to hide. "What do you want?" I managed to ask, feeling the walls close in around me. Then a chilling revelation hit me, solid and urgent. I had stumbled too far into something dark, and now it was too late to turn back. The creature wasn't just hunting. It was part of something much bigger. The question loomed over me with suffocating weight. What had I walked into? Before I could voice my fears, the emerging figures spoke in unison, their voices blending into a terrifying melody. "You've come to join us." I took a step back, my heart pounding. "Join you? What do you mean?" The figures exchanged glances, and the tallest one, still obscured by shadow, stepped forward. "You're not the first," they said. "The creature above. It's merely a guardian. We've been waiting for someone like you." "Someone like me?" I echoed, confusion clouding my thoughts. There was no way I could be part of whatever twisted game they were playing. I had to find a way out. The creature's growl echoed on the other side of the trapdoor, sending a shiver through my body. "Yes," the voice continued, calm yet chilling. "You seek answers, but here, darkness is truth." I swallowed hard, eyes darting between the figures. I could sense their hostility beneath the placating words. "I didn't come here to join anything," I replied, my voice steadier than I felt. "I need to leave." As if reacting to my defiance, the closest figure lunged, grabbing my wrist with surprising strength. "You can't leave. Not yet. You must see what lies beneath." I jerked away, panic flaring. "Get off me!" My instinct screamed to run, but the space felt like a coffin. Each figure edged in closer, eyes glinting with something unnameable. "Every person who comes here has a choice," they all said together, their voices merging into an unsettling harmony. "You're either part of the hunt or part of the hunted." The trapdoor rattled violently as the creature above grew more agitated. I could feel the vibrations through the floor. The figure at the front leaned in, voice lowered. "The forest is alive, you see. It knows who should be faltered and who should prevail. It's the balance we seek. Balance. I shot back, heart racing even faster. This is madness. Without warning, a loud crash reverberated from above, as if the creature had decided to test the door. The wood split under the strain, and a sharp splinter flew into the air. The figures recoiled, panic flickering across their faces. "It senses you," one shouted. "You've drawn its attention." I took a step back, my mind racing. If I didn't get out soon, I wouldn't have a chance to find answers or to protect myself. "What do I need to do?" I almost begged, desperation creeping into my tone. "Reveal your truth," another whispered, eyes widening with fervor, "and it may spare you." I hesitated. I didn't even know what my truth was anymore. My past felt muddled, tangled in shadows. But following the unsettling path might be my only hope of survival. As I pushed my fear down, trying to find any strength left, the trapdoor burst open with a deafening crack. Light poured in for the first time, illuminating the figures surrounding me and casting long shadows against the damp walls. I squinted at the door, a monstrous figure towering above. The creature was just a few steps away, and I realized I had only seconds to decide. Stay with the shadows who promised me clarity, or face the beast and the chaos lurking in the light. That was when I understood. I would have to confront both my past and my fears, whether I was ready for it or not. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for what came next. The creature loomed over me, a massive silhouette backlit by the pale glow of the moon. Its eyes glimmered with intensity, piercing through the darkness. My heart raced, but I forced myself to remain still. The figures around me dissolved into whispers, their urgency fading against the threat of the beast. In a swift, instinctive motion, I took a step toward the door, desperate to escape the suffocating atmosphere. The creature shifted, a low growl rumbling from deep within its throat, as if it could sense my fear. The shadows behind me felt dormant, their voices now silent. "You don't want to do that," one of them said in a taut whisper, but I barely registered the warning. Each heartbeat was a relentless countdown. I leapt toward the door, driven by sheer instinct. I could feel the shadows brush against my skin, a sudden chill that made me hesitate. "Stop!" a voice called out. I was already out of the cellar, stumbling into the open air. The forest greeted me with a chill. The moon hung high, casting eerie shadows between the trees. I turned back, expecting them to follow, but the figures remained behind the threshold, their faces shrouded in darkness. "Every choice has a price," they shouted in unison, an unnerving echo. The creature charged from the cellar, leaping into the moonlight. It was larger than I had imagined, its sinewy body rippling with primal power. I sprinted into the woods, branches snagging at my clothes. Each step felt heavy, the underbrush clawing at my ankles as I dashed deeper into the maze of trees. The growl of the creature followed, a relentless sound that hung in the air like a storm waiting to break. Panic surged within me as I scrambled for direction. "Think!" I muttered to myself, pushing through the brush. I needed to reach the clearing. I remembered the map I'd studied earlier today, the one that led to the old ruins. I could find safety there. A sharp snap from behind me made me glance back. The creature was gaining ground, its breath echoing like thunder. I veered left, trying to ignore the pounding of my heart. What was I doing here? Was it truly seeking me out, or was it just a part of the forest's hunt? Then I spotted it. The clearing up ahead. Beams of moonlight broke through the canopy, illuminating crumbling stones and ancient symbols carved into them. Relief surged within me, but I couldn't shake the feeling that I was running toward danger rather than safety. I burst into the clearing, gasping for breath. The ruins towered around me, the stone walls telling stories of ages past. I turned to face the woods, dread twisting in my gut. I heard it then. The creature's growl echoing, a warning carried on the wind. But it wasn't just the creature that held my attention. Something else stirred in the dark, a flicker of movement, another figure emerging from the shadows. "Your truth will be revealed," it said, and for a moment my breath caught. I didn't know if it was friend or foe. As the shape drew closer, everything felt heavy with expectation. Whatever choice I made next could change everything. Then everything went dark. I woke up, disoriented, my body sprawled on the cold ground. The clearing was gone, replaced by a haze that obscured my vision. My pulse raced, fueled by confusion. Where was I? I blinked, trying to focus. The shadows loomed nearby, twisting and swirling as if alive. I could sense their presence, even if I couldn't see their forms. It reminded me of the figures in the cellar, whispering warnings. Panic flared again. "Hello?" I called, my voice shaky. The only response was silence, thick and suffocating. I forced myself to sit up, sweeping my gaze around for any hint of the creature or the mysterious figure. I needed to know what was real and what was nightmare. Then I heard it, a rustling sound in the brush nearby. My heart dropped. I knew that sound. The creature. It was here. My instinct screamed for me to flee, but I was too disoriented to make a rational decision. Instead, I stood up and searched for an escape route, every hair on my body standing on end. That's when I saw it. A flicker of light through the trees, barely visible but undeniable. It danced like a beacon, promising safety or perhaps more danger. I had no idea what it was, yet something inside urged me forward. I moved cautiously, the underbrush crackling under my feet. With each step I risked being spotted, but fear propelled me. The rustling grew louder behind me, and I realized the creature was still in pursuit. I quickened my pace, eyes locked on that distant glow. As I drew closer, I could make out a shape, a primitive fire crackling merrily amidst the ruins of what used to be. But I wasn't alone. Figures moved around the fire, their faces obscured by shadows. Yet the ambience seemed strangely inviting. I approached, drawn by an inexplicable pull, even as alarm bells rang in my head. "Join us," one of the shadows beckoned, its voice familiar yet foreign. The shapes were indistinct, making it impossible to gauge their intent. I hesitated, caught between the warmth of the fire and the fear of the unknown. Then I heard the deep growl again, closer this time. It almost felt like a warning against the allure ahead. I turned back to the dark woods, adrenaline surging again as the creature's presence loomed large, its form blocking the path back to safety. I was trapped. Just as I was about to dart back into the shadows, the figures raised their hands, and the air filled with a low chant. My mind whirled in a mixture of fear and curiosity. What were they saying? Was this a rite, or something more sinister? Nothing made sense anymore. The promise of truth lingered in the air, as tangible as the smoke swirling from the fire, but I couldn't shake the sense that I was standing on the edge of something dark. "Your fate lies with us," they said in unison, their voices echoing through the clearing. I was terrified of what that could mean. Before I could respond, something shifted in the air. A sudden chill swept through the clearing, cutting through the warmth from the fire. The shadows trembled, and I realized we weren't alone. Someone else had entered the clearing. My body tensed, ready to react as I turned my head toward the dark edge of the forest. Then everything went silent. I could feel something watching me. The air was thick with anticipation. The stillness hung heavy in the air, pressing down on my chest. I could hear the sound of my own breathing, shallow and quick. The shadows gathered around the fire seemed to shift, their forms warping as if they were waiting for something to happen. My eyes darted between the figures and the dark forest, where I sensed the newcomer lurking. Just then, the ground shook slightly beneath my feet, a low rumble echoing through the clearing. The flames wavered, the flickering light casting strange shapes on the trees. It felt like a warning, like nature itself was reacting to the presence of something malevolent. The figures around the fire fell quiet, their chanting silenced as they turned as one to face the forest. "What is it?" I whispered. But my voice was swallowed by the tension. In the darkness, a shape stepped into the light. It was tall, far taller than any human should be. My breath hitched as I squinted to see more, my heart pounding against my ribcage. The newcomer was cloaked, shadows draping over its body, obscuring its features. Still, I could sense an unmistakable aura of power radiating from it, making my skin crawl. "Leave this place," the figure commanded, in a voice that resonated through the clearing like rolling thunder. The words were directed not at me, but at the shadows surrounding the fire. A wave of unease washed over me. The figures hesitated before inching back, their movements cautious. One of them spoke, the voice tremulous. "We seek the truth. It is not your place to interfere." The cloaked figure stepped forward, the firelight reflecting off its ominous presence. "You cannot handle the truth you seek. You tread on dangerous ground." Fear gripped me tight. I had no sense of what truth was being pursued, or what consequences lay ahead. The chanting had offered a promise, perhaps one that should not have been made. Suddenly, the low growl returned from the woods, sharper and more feral this time. It was close. I could almost feel its breath, hot and heavy against my back. Panic surged, and I turned my gaze back to the encroaching darkness, weighing my options. "Run!" I heard a voice cry. It wasn't one of the shadow figures, but something deeper, almost primal. My instincts took control faster than my mind could comprehend. Without looking back, I sprinted toward the edge of the clearing, driven by fear of the creature and this new presence alike. I could hear the rustling in the brush, the sound like claws tearing through the undergrowth. My feet pounded against the ground, and I dared a glance over my shoulder. The cloaked figure was now standing at the fire, the shadows recoiling. And then it happened. The shadows surged, swirling violently around the fire as if infected by the newcomer's energy. It was chaos, their forms flickering, trying to break free. Then, in an instant, a dark shadow shot towards me from the clearing, faster than I could react. Instinct kicked in again. I dashed deeper into the woods, heart racing, but a sense of impending doom loomed above me. Whatever had joined the clearing was not just another threat. It felt like an omen. I didn't know where I was running or what would happen next, but one thing was clear. I was no longer just a spectator. I was part of a twisted game, and the stakes were rising. I ran blindly through the thick trees, heart pounding in my ears as the woods closed in around me. I didn't dare look back. I just pushed forward, branches slashing at my arms and legs, as if the forest itself were trying to hold me back. The growling of the creature echoed through the underbrush. Closer now, a relentless sound that threatened to swallow me whole. The memories of the figures around the fire replayed in my mind, their chanting, their eyes, their promises of truth. What truth? What price would I have to pay? The forest offered no answers, only an oppressive silence broken by the snapping of twigs, the low growls behind me. As I stumbled into another clearing, the moonlight washed over me, illuminating an ancient oak that looked more gnarled than any tree should. It stood tall and proud, but its roots curled like fingers reaching out for something, perhaps for me. Panic surged within. I was exhausted, terrified, but I had to keep moving. Then I saw it, a path barely visible winding away from the clearing. My gut told me that it led out, perhaps to safety, or maybe deeper into danger, but at that moment I had no choice. I took a deep breath and plunged down the path, adrenaline pumping through my veins. With each step, the air grew thinner, colder. Shadows twisted in the corners of my vision, teasing my awareness with fleeting glimpses. I felt exposed, like prey in a hunter's field. Behind me, the growl morphed into an ethereal echo, taunting me. "Hurry!" it seemed to hiss. "We're coming for you!" I sprinted until my legs burned and my lungs ached, but I couldn't stop. I wouldn't stop. In the distance, I thought I heard the familiar flicker of laughter, the same noise that haunted my first nights in the forest. Fear tightened around my throat like a vice. Was it them? Had I stumbled back into the territory of those figures? I pressed on, navigating the treacherous path as moonlight danced between the branches overhead. Time blended into a blur of panic and instinct. I had lost track of how long I had been running, but the brush around me began to thin, hinting that I was reaching the forest's edge. Suddenly I broke through, bursting into an open field glimmering with starlight, a stark contrast to the suffocating darkness of the woods. I took a moment to catch my breath, the cool night air filling my lungs like a balm. But there was no time to rest. I had to keep moving. I glanced back toward the trees, half expecting the creature to emerge at any moment. Instead, a silence enveloped the field, leaving me with a sense of foreboding. The laughter had faded, replaced by an eerie stillness that hung heavy in the air. My heart hammered against my ribs as uncertainty crept back in. What had I just escaped? Were those unseen figures still watching? The laughter, the growls, they could return at any moment. I took a hesitant step back toward the trees, peering into the darkness, feeling an invisible weight pinning me in place. Then out of the corners of my eyes I saw them, the shadows from the forest looming at the edge, merging with the night. They were waiting, shifting and swirling, a reminder that I was never truly free. The deep growl of the creature rolled through the air again, but it was quieter this time, more distant, as if it had retreated into the forest's murky embrace. I turned to run again, but something in my gut held me back. I could still hear whispers, soft yet clear, a warning mingled with temptation. "You've just begun to see." Panic flooded me. I sprinted across the field toward a glimpse of lights in the distance. The lights belonged to a small town, nestled at the foot of the woods. Safety, I thought, but part of me understood that safety was elusive. As I reached the outskirts of the town, I risked a glance over my shoulder. The woods appeared unchanged, impenetrable, as if nothing had transpired within. I could still feel the pulse of that otherworldly presence pressing in, hovering just beyond sight. With every moment the doubt grew within me. Was it all in my head? Had I imagined the creatures, the whispers, the laughter, as a figment of my imagination? But as I felt the weight of the forest behind me, I knew better. That haunting call, that primal essence, I was entwined with it all now. I stepped onto the pavement, heart racing, but the lingering dread weighed heavier than the comfort of light and civilization. I moved toward the distant glow, hoping to lose myself in the crowded streets. Yet I could never shake the thought. What had just happened? What had I truly escaped, and what darkness still lingered in the shadows? Nothing felt certain anymore, but the question hung in the air, unanswered. I kept moving, but deep down I sensed that I would never entirely leave that forest behind. No matter how far I traveled, its whispers would echo in the recesses of my mind. Whether supernatural or simply madness, it had changed me. It was a darkness I couldn't explain, a truth that settled in like an uninvited guest, a truth I would need to carry with me forevermore.